Hello, and welcome to the Weird Around Illinois podcast. Today we're going to talk about Bigfoot, and more specifically, 5 places to find a Bigfoot in Illinois. So let's get weird. I'd like to start with probably the most famous Bigfoot sighting in Illinois, and that is the Big Muddy Monster, sighted in Murfreesboro, Illinois. The most famous sightings were in 1973 and 1976. To give you kind of the overview, I just finished reading the police reports on this, strangely enough. In 1973, there were 2 people in a car who spotted a Bigfoot-like creature. The police tracked it with their dogs. The dogs kept stopping and sniffing this weird slime-like substance they were finding along the ground where it had supposedly walked. And when the dogs supposedly cornered this beast in a building, they refused to enter. And then the police, waited till they had backup, and then they entered the building and there was nothing there. They said that it was the first time the dogs had ever refused to enter before, because clearing a building was something they were trained for. A few days later in 1973, in June of 1973, the creature was sighted near a boat dock. This time the people who sighted it claimed it let off this just gosh-awful scream. Police were called and they found footprints in the mud. And they started tracking the footprints and they got to the edge of the woods where they heard a horrifying scream. The police, being human, decided that they were going to wait for backup and went back to their cars and waited for backup before they went into the woods to look for it. And by then it was long gone. I find that much more believable than police just charging into the woods for an unknown 8-foot tall hairy creature.
Yeah.
Then a few days after that, there were carnival workers who reported seeing it. I think their sighting was actually before the other 2 sightings, but they didn't want to report it because they were afraid they would scare off people who were coming to see their carnival. So in 1976, we basically had the same creature spotted in almost the exact same area of Murfreesboro, Illinois. One was a couple children playing wiffle ball who sighted it, and then there was a family with the dog sighted it near the woods. The dog actually chased it to the woods, or came to the edge of the woods and started barking, but like the other dog, it refused to enter the woods because of what was in there. The other thing I should mention is that Murfreesboro is pretty close to Shawnee National Forest, which is a very common place for Bigfooters to go these days. I think we actually saw it on Finding Bigfoot once.
Yeah.
And one place you're sure to find Bigfoot is the Gods of the World Outpost store or something. And there's this huge statue of a female Bigfoot out front that they call Sassy.
Oh wait, I think I have seen an image of that.
Yeah. So that's the Big Muddy Monster.
Another common place to see Bigfoot is actually in Sangamon County. Sightings may range from 1977 all the way to 2017. There were over 10 reports in total that I've seen. There's a ton of them. I don't have a direct one, but to generalize their descriptions and what the experience was like, they were reported as a super strong, long-armed, 6 to 8 feet tall super being. The thing is that makes this kind of special is that there were actually some proper investigators, paranormal investigators there that saw different encounters of Bigfoot, and they got vocalizations of a Bigfoot along with footsteps, and there were other reports along with this that had the same footsteps and such. But that one was one that stood out to me quite a bit.
I'll tell you the thing that stood out to me in the Sangamon County reports. And I glanced through a few of them. I think it was one of the 2009 reports where they saw Bigfoot on a Frisbee golf course.
Oh.
And the reason that stood out to me is because I was just reading about an encounter at a Frisbee golf course in Shanahan, Illinois. I can't remember if it was Dogman or Bigfoot. They may not have even known what it was. It was just a big hairy creature. But I was thinking to myself that Frisbee golf courses are kind of like those clearings that they make for the power lines, in the fact that, that in the middle of sometimes a heavily wooded area, you have this nice cleared out area where deer will come out and graze, and other prey animals will come out, and it just seems like a perfect place for a Bigfoot or a Dogman to come out when people aren't around.
That's what they talk about all the time in Finding Bigfoot.
Yeah.
They're like a great place to look for Bigfoot
Mm-hmm.
because that's like where they travel.
And this place, it would be more likely for you to see Bigfoot evidence from what I've seen as like going in during the fall, actually day or night. It based on the evidence, it's kind of like a little bit of both. You'll probably only find minor evidence because the most recent reports were, of course, the vocalizations and footsteps, not as like detailed as the ones before.
I think that's kind of a common theme in Illinois. I think because Illinois is such a populated state, the Bigfoot here tend to be more shy.
Yeah, much more scattered when it comes to timing.
Yeah, and they tend to hide deeper in the woods and try to stay away from people because there's just so darn many of us.
The next one is Cuba Road. This one I found really interesting because there's actually been several ghost sightings on Cuba Road. It's known to be like one of the most haunted roads in Illinois. But someone, like a couple apparently saw like Bigfoot at the side of the road. And I just found that really weird.
Yeah. Now again, I believe that was a really late night sighting. I think it was like 2 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
Which again follows that theory that they're trying to be out when the people aren't. The one thing that I noticed about it though, even though it was a BFRO report, the description and the way they saw it, it could have been Bigfoot or Dogman. So I think we actually included this sighting in one of our Dogman lists before, and I think it was the same sighting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But it could be either one. I mean, it based on the BFRO report anyway, the initial report, it could easily be a Bigfoot or a Dogman. I mean, a 7-foot tall, muscular, hairy creature.
Yeah.
So next we have Chandlerville, which is northwest of Springfield, I believe. Not too far from the Sangamon County sightings we were talking about, but a little out of that county. A BFRO report that called it very reliable in 2021. Chandlerville on Route 78 near the Sangamon River. Again, rivers, Dogman, Bigfoot. Common theme here.
Mm-hmm.
The witness reported seeing this big animal that apparently jumped across the road and cleared it in 2 steps. They were about 40 yards away. Very large legs, swinging their arms, very hairy arms. Classic Bigfoot crossing the road sighting. And I guess what surprises me about this is it's so recent, November 2021.
The final place that you might want to go to find Bigfoot is Madison County. Now, one thing to be clear about is that St. Louis, which is like literally right next to Madison County, is like almost a hotspot for UFOs, Bigfoots, you name it, really.
Yeah.
But focusing on Madison County, there are 16 plus reports ranging from 2008 to 2017. Reports describe a dark gray, furred, 7 to 8 feet tall, standing being. Now, once more, it's seen crossing the road at night, usually. Now, most of these sightings are actually kind of scattered throughout all 4 seasons, but once more, it's at night, trying to avoid the humans, of course.
Mm-hmm.
This can either, with the seasons being scattered, this can either show that like maybe it's more likely to see a Bigfoot if it's going to be more scattered and like across all the time. Or it could just show that's more of a hoax because it's not really properly shown to be at a specific time or day.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I will say that Madison County is also really, really close to Murfreesboro, where the big muddy monster was. And, you could kind of draw a line and say either it's the same monster or the same family of monsters, the same family of Bigfoot that have been living in that area since the 70s, or you could say that Bigfoot is so popular in that area that, it attracts more hoaxers. So I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure which way to go with that, but I will say, of those sightings that you mentioned, there was one in Edwardsville that really struck me because the guy had seen it outside in his yard, like by his shed, and he had the presence of mind to run upstairs and grab his night vision.
Oh.
And he came down and actually viewed it through his night vision and was able to give this incredibly clear and accurate description of what he was looking at. And you know, you've looked through night vision. I mean, there's no mistaking things through night vision. I mean, when you see a 7 foot tall hairy non-human, you know it's a 7 foot tall hairy non-human.
Yeah, when it's something that tall, you should be able to decipher it.
Yeah. So I mean, that leaves us with either the guy is lying or the guy saw Bigfoot, and you know, clearly the BFRO investigators did not think the man was lying. So
yeah, and this information was from the BFRO, and I believe I saw that before. Was the video like shown somewhere?
I think it was. I think there was a link to it.
Okay, I'll have to look back at that.
Yeah.
And notice how there's like all of these different sightings in southern Illinois. You don't really see many in northern Illinois.
No. Cuba Road, Shanahan. Those are the only two I can really think of in northern Illinois where there have been credible Bigfoot sightings. I mean, central Illinois, you've got some. But yeah, it really seems the hot spot is down there by St. Louis, the Murfreesboro, Madison County area, which is why we definitely have to get down there.
Yeah, right. There's more forest down there, right?
Yeah, the Shawnee National Forest is down there, and that's a hot spot for Bigfoot and Dogman. You've also got some general weirdness taking place in Little Egypt, which is down there. Lots of paranormal activity, ghosts, UFO sightings. You've got the Cahokia Mounds down there, which carry some sort of spiritual energy, and people talk about portals there. In general, that's just an area that has to be seen.
Yeah.
Those are our 5 places to look for Bigfoot in Illinois. If you have more places to look that we've missed, by all means, share them with us. We hope to get to all these places eventually, and hope to come back with credible pictures of a Bigfoot someday. So thank you all for listening, and thanks for subscribing.